Algebra 1 EOC practice test number 28. Consider the functions f of x, g of x, and h of x. Order the functions from greatest to least based on the maximum value of each function. Alright, so we need to order them from greatest to least based on their maximum value. Alright, so these are quadratic equations, and so we find the maximum by looking at the y value of the vertex. So we need the y value of the vertex to determine what the maximum is. And there's multiple ways to do this, and looking at the equations, it looks like they're going to be different forms that may be easiest. H of x is in vertex form, which means the vertex is hk. The vertex is actually given. So 425 is the vertex. So the y value is 25. So h of x, we can determine the maximum by just looking at the equation. Now, g of x is in standard form. So when it's in standard form, we can do a couple things. So you can look at a graph and you can determine the maximum from there, or you can do find your vertex by doing negative b over 2a. So let's start with that, and then we'll check it using the calculator. So negative b over 2a. This helps me find the x of my vertex. So I'm going to do a, b, and c. So b is negative 4. Or sorry, b is 4. Negative b is negative 4. All right, and then over 2 times a is negative 1/2. And so I'm going to have this equal negative 4. Negative 2 over 2. Negative 2 over 2 is just negative 1. So that is 4. All right, once I find the x, I can plug that in to find the y value. All right, so the y value, I'm going to plug it into the same equation here. So I'm going to have negative 1/2 and then 4 squared plus 4 times 4 and then plus 24. All right, so I'm going to have negative 1/2. 4 squared is 16 plus 4 times 4 is 16 plus 24. So half of 16 is 8, so this is going to be negative 8 plus 16 plus 24. So negative 8 plus 16 is 8, and 8 plus 24 is 32. So 432 is the vertex for g of x, which means 32 would be the maximum value, because your maximum comes from your y-axis. Remember, your vertical axis is your max or min. Your horizontal axis is the x value. All right, let's just double check this real quick. All right, so we have our calculator here. So we can, that's the last equation, so let's delete these out. And I'm going to type in negative 1/2 x squared plus 4x plus 24 and hit graph. All right, seems like my window is still off from the last equation, but all we have to do is determine what the maximum value is, and it looks like it's 32, and let's see if we get to the top here. And it's going to be very close to 32. So 432 is what we got. Just looking briefly at the graph, we can see that that is a good answer. And where these are all negative, we know we're going to have a maximum value for each. All right, let's look at f of x. So this one is probably the most difficult just because of the numbers and how large or small it's going to be when you get done multiplying. So we can type that one in our calculator as well, but let's look at it algebraically first. So we're going to have, if I put this in standard form, the first thing I'm going to do is keep my negative 1 over 25, and I'm going to multiply these two binomials together first. So x times x is x squared, and then plus 50x and plus 25x, and then 25 times 50 is 1250. So 25 times 50 is 1250. All right, so I've got negative 1 over 25. I'm going to combine my middle terms to get 75x plus 1250. Now, notice I still have these in parentheses because now I have to multiply this by each one of these. So I'm just trying to put it in standard form. So negative 1 over 25x squared. This is going to become negative 3x, and 1250 divided by 25 is negative 50. Again, it's negative times this, so that's going to be negative 50. All right, so what I did was just rewrite f of x in standard form. Okay, so now I can do the same thing I did over here, which is find my vertex. I'm going to do x equals negative b over 2a. Negative b is positive 3 over 2 times negative 1 over 25. All right, so if I simplify this, I'm going to get 3 over negative 2 over 25. And if you remember dividing a fraction by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. So negative 25 over 2. So that would be negative 75 over 2. And when you reduce negative 75 divided by 2, you're going to get negative 37.5. Now, that's my x. I need my y value. Okay, so negative 37.5. All right, so plug that in. I'm going to plug it back into my original equation. So negative 1/25 times negative 37.5 squared plus 75 times negative 37.5. These points don't show up very well. And then, what was the rest of it? Minus 50. Wait a minute. That should be negative 3 here. I wrote that down wrong. All right. So my equation that I'm looking at is right here. This is my standard form equation. So negative 1/25 times my x squared minus 3 times x, and then minus 50. All right, so I'm going to use my calculator here to do negative 1 over 25 times negative 37.5 squared minus 3 times negative 37.5, and then minus 50. All right, so it gave me a y value of 6.25. All right, so I am going to check that again in my calculator, but the reason I do this algebraically is because sometimes it's hard to find in the calculator. So let's look at the calculator and see if I can graph this. Let me get rid of some of this work here. Alright, that'll at least allow me to see some of the stuff on my calculator here. Alright, so if I want to graph this, I'm going to go turn it on. I'm going to hit y equals, I'm going to clear out the last one, and I'm going to type in this equation here. You could type in the one we put in standard form. It doesn't matter which way it is as long as you type it in exactly how it says. Excuse me, which I did not type it in exactly how it says. So negative 1 over 25. It's not letting me use my calculator properly. Let me get rid of some more of this writing here. Maybe if I can see it a little bit better, that would help. Okay, try it one more time. So negative 1 divided by 25, parentheses, x plus 25 times x plus 50. All right, so this is the factored form, and I rewrote it in standard form in order to find the vertex, but you can just leave it in either form to do this. All right, so if I do zoom 6, it takes me back to a standard 10 by 10. Since we messed with the window on the last one, it wasn't showing up. As you can see, this is not showing up. So if I change my window, let's just change it to negative 100, positive 100, negative 100, oops. I'm having all kinds of trouble with my calculator. All right, that's supposed to be negative 100 and 100. All right, now let's see if it shows up. Okay, there it is. So we can see that we don't need up to 100 on the x or the y positives. So let's get rid of some of those. So my x positive, I'm going to put back to 10. And my y positive, I'm going to put back to 10 as well. What we're trying to do is verify that the vertex here is about, or the maximum is about 6.25. So we can see here, if we trace it, we've got to trace it to where our x value is roughly negative 37. And you can see that it's pretty close right there. So you can see it's like the cursor's blinking at the top. So this is the vertex. We did find it correctly. Again, it would have been a little hard to find it on the calculator unless you knew that these values had to be very large negative numbers. So if you try just to use your calculator, sometimes that may be a problem. All right, now the rest of the question. All right, it says, order the functions from greatest to least by their maximum value. All right, so the maximum is g of x. All right, so g of x is the maximum. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is h of x. And the smallest maximum is f of x. All right, so order the functions from greatest to least based on the maximum value of each function. So we had to first find these maximum values, and then we order them first, second, and third based on biggest to least. So you would have to put it in the answer box as g of x, h of x, and f of x in that order to get the correct answer.